Welcome to episode 7 of the BEPS Project on the Amateur. These are the 15 piano sonatas written by Beethoven between 1795 and 1801, which I have undertaken to learn movement by movement in sequence for as long as it takes, basically. If performing all 32 of Beethoven's piano sonatas is the piano world's equivalent of a marathon, then the BEPS Project, I guess, is a 10K run 100 meters at a time for, about 3 years. To follow along as I shamble down this path, subscribe to my channel on YouTube, like The Amateur Piano on Facebook, or, if you want to keep me motivated, toss $1 or $3 into my tip jar at patreon.com/theamateur. Sorry, there's construction across the street. So Hercule. Remember that time, must have been episode 3, when I said that these Scherzo trio third movements are little breathers? Little moments of emotional respite for both performers and audiences? Remember when I said that? Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to modify that statement. So what remains true so far is that in terms of musical substance, the weight and density of musical ideas, Scherzo trios are, in fact, on the lighter side. By definition, in fact, scherzo in Italian means joke or jest. Hypothetical scenario. Let's say that just before voluntarily subjecting myself, as an audience member, to the temporary incarceration of a hypothetical piano recital, I happen to make an ill-considered decision to stop in at a 7-Eleven and grab me a big gulp of Diet Coke. And then, let's say the first selection on the hypothetical recital program is a 4-movement piano sonata where the third movement is a scherzo trio. So it's not a question of if, but a question of when the urgent need arises. I will almost certainly choose to make my move and duck out for a quick pee-pee break during the scherzo trio movement. Look, I'm just being honest here, giving you a glimpse of my internal priorities. As a listener, a consumer, this is how I think. But so here's where the joke's on me. See what I did there? As a performer, this particular scherzo trio was not a breather. There was zero respite, zero succor in this third sonata of Beethoven. This movement was an enormous pain in the ass, but its Himalayan pain in the assery notwithstanding, it also presented an opportunity. When in the midst of my suffering, I happened to get a ping from one of my Facebook followers who shared with me some links to fellow amateurs who undertook to record the marathon. That is, all 32 sonatas last year during what was supposed to be the big Beethoven sesquicentennial extravaganza. That's the 250th birthday, not death day, of Beethoven. Which then, of course, didn't happen. Or rather, it sort of did, but it was virtual and so lame, basically. I'll put links in the description below so that you all can enjoy. But in general, what I appreciate and admire about these marathoners is the pluck and grit, obviously. But, I mean, it comes at the expense of thoughtful interpretation, which is one of the main reasons why I do this. So it's not for me. But I do appreciate the emotional arc of any hellish endurance test. How the expediency of the present forces you to move on from mistakes and cope with impediments. I mean, these folks just play straight through, straight up. Clams, wrong notes and all, who cares? Gotta keep moving. And watching these marathoners reminded me, basically, that I have issues. I mean, as much as I like to emphasize that my recordings are imperfect, and I try very hard to appear okay with that, the reality is that I still get really tripped up by mistakes, or things not being just so, you know. So as I said, there was an opportunity with this piece, for me. There's some technical challenges that even the pros struggle with. This section, for example. At tempo, my favorite Beethoven pianist, Richard Good, he has to add a few extra milliseconds and clip the gesture in the bass ever so in order to make these leaps. And then the trio total beast at tempo, such that I selectively took advantage of the school of thought that the trio section can relax slightly versus the scherzo bookends. Central to the difficulties here is the reliance of musical ideas in this movement on a very energetic tempo. Too slow, too deliberate, too careful, that kind of playing kills it. And yet I am most comfortable when I'm playing deliberately and carefully at a tempo that I can control. Speed terrifies me, actually. Take skiing, for example. I grew up in the desert, so I didn't ski. I didn't even try skiing until I was like 24 years old. At which point, I became very well acquainted with my fear of going downhill fast. Even when, after a few runs on the bunny slope and things were going pretty well on an actual hill, no imminent disaster, no obstructions ahead, my inclination was still to just fall. Like, as in deliberately fall, self-sabotage style. So did you know that it has a name, this condition? Tachophobia. The fear of doing things too fast. Isn't that interesting? And in the end, this piece ended up being pretty on point as a therapeutic exercise. I've never done this before. Turned on the cameras and recorded something deliberately at a tempo I wasn't sure I could control. And I must say, it was invigorating. Uncomfortable, but invigorating. And as for the mistakes, and there are plenty of them, they don't bother me as much as I thought they would. Thanks again to my patrons for their ongoing support. And if you'd like to join them, visit my page at patreon.com/theamateur. Subscriptions start at just $3 a month, and for that, you get early releases, you get content that's stripped free of all of these exhortations and the pleadings to like and subscribe, in addition to bonus content occasionally. But no matter what you do, the most important thing is to click that like button and subscribe with the little bell thingy if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, like the amateur piano and this video, and share with your friends. Next up is the fourth movement of this sonata, which is as beastly or beastlier than this movement, so it might take me a few weeks. In the meantime, take care, stay safe, see you then.